I'm gonna look for my money. I'll be back real soon. Did anybody absolutely love Solange's album Cranes in the Sky? Did anybody have like a pivotal moment when that album dropped? If so, let me know. But that song is relevant to this Virgo new moon because, as some of you already know, Virgo is a Mercury ruled mutable earth sign. And when we have a new moon in Virgo, there's really these overarching themes of rest, getting back to the body, getting back to the earth, getting back to what grounds us, what gives us a bit more balance. And this is a great opportunity to do that. We'll talk about this new moon, what it means for each of us unique to our rising sign, sun or moon sign as well. And so let's dive in. Now, for a bit of context, we will see the sun and moon conjunct in this new moon at 0 degrees in Virgo at the start of Virgo season as well. This will be on the same day that the sun enters the sign of Virgo. And like mentioned, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury has ended its retrograde as of August 11th. And so this is really indicating a time of kind of getting back to ourselves, getting back to the rhythm of things, especially if we were feeling that retrograde a bit more strongly than others. But hello, friends. It's your girl, Alina. And on this channel, we talk all things alignment, aligning with not just the cosmos and the seasons, but also aligning with your intuition. And in this video, we're going to be diving into this new moon, all things new moon, the top transits also happening around the time of this lunation, especially what's going on with Mercury, because that will be setting a tone since Mercury rules over Virgo and all the things. We're going to talk about it. I will also be giving custom horoscopes for each sign. So that will be time-stamped in the video along with journal prompts, and we have fun over here. So get comfy or maybe start a chore. I don't know. I'm considering making this a podcast, just like taking the audio form. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. So new moons in general are this time for new beginnings. It's the marking of the beginning of a new lunar cycle, which lasts 28 days, but also this 6-month cycle where we will see in 6 months, there will be a Virgo full moon, which will be tied to this new moon. So the things that we initiate, things that we start, intentions that we set around this time, if we choose to do so, you don't always have to set intentions every single new moon, will be tied back to things that unfold in about 6 months. So this is this cosmic sort of signification of a great time for planting seeds of the things that we want to grow around this time. And just like we see that the moon is essentially not visible in the night sky at this time, which makes it great for, stargazing, it also is a signification of the power of rest, reflection, drawing our energy back to ourselves, not always being visible or always in action all the time, and the power that there is in that time to ourselves. Now, from a traditional astrology perspective, Virgo, yes, is this sign of balance. It's represented by the Virgin and more modern symbolism of it, but also Mother Nature. It's also the signification of refinement, purification, discernment. This is a part of why there's a lot of associations of Virgos being perfectionists and analytical. This also goes back to that root of it being ruled by Mercury, this very analytical, information-oriented planet. And so when we see that there is a new moon at 0 degrees in Virgo, it's really indicating this time that is really beautiful and potent for reflecting on how we analyze things, how we process information, on the smaller details of things, but namely how we balance things. Think of the synergistic balance in nature, right? How do we find balance? That doesn't necessarily need to be equated to a perfect schedule or a perfect organized, charts and data and Excel sheets and all of those things. Balance looks unique to everyone in the same way that different ecosystems find their own balance, but they look drastically different, right? There is divine balance in the rainforests as well as the deserts, right? As well as, the bottom of the ocean. And in that same way, this new moon can be a beautiful time for exploring what brings us balance. Maybe things are going great for us right now in whatever capacity, but also exploring, okay, like how can I be a little bit more grounded in the things that I do? Or maybe you already feel grounded celebrating those things, but there's this overarching theme of rest, reflection, drawing our energy back to ourselves in that way. And with it being at 0 degrees, this is indicating a really potent new start for many of us. 0 degrees is the very beginning of a zodiac sign when the planet, or for example, the sun and moon, will have just entered Virgo at the time of this new moon. Now, in terms of astrological seasons, as mentioned before, the sun just entered Virgo. That means that this is the start of Virgo season. So I want to say a very happy birthday to all of my Virgo friends. We love you. I aspire. I wish I had a shred of Virgo in my charts. I actually don't. And yeah, it's funny because a lot of people actually ask me, or not a lot, but every once in a while I've gotten a comment of like, oh, you must have Virgo in your charts. And I'm like, actually, no. And they think that I do because, as many of you know, I make planners and wall calendars and stationery. And it's actually funny because I personally know that I make planners and wall calendars and stationery because I am a very mercurial person, but I am very much a Gemini. I have a Gemini stellium. I have, prominent Pisces placements in my chart, another mutable sign. And so through the chaos of it all, I actually find it very helpful to sort of outsource the organization, have it outside of my mind on a grounded piece of paper. And speaking of which, I want to mention to you some 2026 planner updates really quick. If you haven't already, you can sign up to be the first notified as soon as they launch. But I'm wrapping up, manufacturing orders and all that stuff. I'm going to be getting samples in and I'm going to share them with you guys. And I'm so excited. But all that to say, if you want to be the first notified about it, we're going to be doing early bird discounts, loyalty discounts, all that stuff to the very first people on the email list. All of that will be in the video description down below. Also, if you want all of the things outlined in this video in email form and, sent to you around the time of every full and new moon, then be sure to sign up for the Align newsletter that I send out weekly. It's on Substack and it's really cool because it's a newsletter, but it's also interactive. And I put in some surveys to get like a little feel for how we're all feeling with the given transits and stuff. So it's kind of cool to see. But all of that to say, let's move on. Okay, let's talk about top transits happening around the time of this new moon. So as many of you know, we are in the thick of retrograde season. And I say that because we not only had Mercury, Saturn, Chiron, Neptune, but also Pluto all retrograde at the same time, many of which started the retrograde at the start of July. And that really contributed to a lot of people feeling the thick of especially Mercury retrograde around that time. But another reason why a lot of these retrogrades felt a little bit more potent was because the signs that each of these planets were in were interacting with one another in a lot of different ways. So it's, I made a few videos like short form on TikTok about it. I posted a few here too, but this actually brings up, one more thing that I wanted to mention is that because, this is a Virgo new moon, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. We want to check on Mercury. As of August 11th, Mercury retrograde ended, but I do want to mention that the post-shadow period ends officially on August 27th. So that is when we will be wiping our hands of all of the Mercury retrograde energy. And I wanted to mention to you guys that I personally had some sort of like life experiences. I won't go too much into detail in case any of y'all are watching. I don't know. Anyway, I had some life experiences that happened at the start of the pre-shadow period. And it is so fascinating to pay attention from the beginning of the retrograde to the end. But I had some experiences that happened that kind of like, basically didn't make me feel very good. And it's fascinating to see how things are kind of like turning around and they're linked back to the beginning of the retrograde. And it's kind of like how, we had to pause, slow down, circle back to things, and then it kind of goes back on its merry way, so to speak. And so for anybody who feels like you're in the thick of it in some way, have heart, a lot of it is unwinding for many of us. But I also wanted to mention, but this brings up something that I wanted to mention, and that is that if you are someone who's like, okay, retrogrades happen, cool, but like when do they happen? And you want to know when they happen ahead of time, right in the same place where you plan your year. Fun fact, the R-line astrology planners have ephemerises. So it's kind of hard to see here, but essentially this is a page that has all of the retrogrades for the entire year. So for me, I know that throughout the year, whenever I'm feeling off or whatever, I don't have to find my phone and then dig through an app or whatever. In the same place where I write my agenda of what the week and the month is, I can flip over and see what the retrogrades are. So let me see if you can see a little bit of it here, but yeah, that's something I'm proud of, something that I added to all of the planners that will be in the 2026 planners as well. Now, A pretty notable transit that will be happening around the time of this new moon will also be the sun and moon conjunct in Virgo. They will be squaring with Uranus in Gemini. Now, this is pretty notable because Uranus is also in a Mercury ruled sign of Gemini, and Uranus is the planet of unexpected shifts and changes, potential surprises, and it's in this air sign that is very malleable. You know, it's all about information exchange, conversation, new insights coming through, new ideas being downloaded. But with it being a square, in a square aspect, which is a more challenging aspect with the sun and moon, it's really indicating that around the time of this new moon, around the time of this sort of fresh start for many of us, we might have some sudden change of plans, some potential surprise sort of insights or urges to break up sort of stale habits. And, you know, with it being around the time of a new moon, if you feel that call to kind of shake things up a little bit, it could be helpful to follow that inkling. But again, with this being a mutable sign, it's really amplifying this theme of flexibility, being open to pivoting and shifting and changing in some way. And again, going back to this earth sign Virgo theme of the new moon, finding grounding through it, finding something that can help us, especially if we do feel shifts. What do you go to that helps you feel a little bit more centered and present? Those are things that will be helping us around this time. The next most notable transit happening will be Mercury, the ruler of Virgo again, in the sign of Leo, and it will be sextiling Mars in the sign of Libra. Now, this is the type of transit that is really supportive when it comes to creative problem solving, really finding a bit more courage to speak up in things and having this ability to sort of negotiate with a bit more grace. And I say that because, you know, Mercury is a planet of the gab, of conversation, information exchange. Mars is a planet of drive, passion, initiation. And, you know, Mars is in this very diplomatic sign of Libra, all about balance and relationships. Mercury's in Leo, all about courage. So blending these things together in a very complementary way, which is what a sextile does when you see the planets come together in it, it's really indicating that around the time of this lunation, you might have some experiences where a lot more sort of productive conversations have the potential to arise. So that's something to take note of. All right, and before we dive into this all sign reading, I'm going to go to our journal prompts. If you have your Our-Line Astrology Planner, you can flip on over to the dedicated Virgo New Moon journaling section that will be in the month of August. First prompt is, what habits, rituals, or routines have you enjoyed over the years? So things that you've kind of come back to. And what about them motivated you to return to them? What was or when was the last time you felt present and grounded? What made you feel that way? What would it look like to recreate that on a routine basis? And finally, what seeds or intentions do you maybe feel called to set at the time of this new moon? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and answer one of these journal prompts to kind of spark conversation before we dive into the all signs reading. Of course, there are timestamps that you can go to. But this last weekend, I went camping. I went camping with friends, with my husband, Chris, and it was such a beautiful time. And, you know, that's something, and that's to answer the second question of like, what makes you feel present and grounded? When was the last time you felt that way? And this feels very poignant to talk about since this is a Virgo full moon or new moon. And, you know, Virgo is all about grounding with the earth and finding that balance in the same way that Mother Earth does. And I felt so grounded there. I felt so refreshed and almost like energetically cleansed in a lot of ways. I felt very therapeutic. And we were actually, it's funny because getting there and getting to our campsite and everything was a little bit chaotic, but it was such a lesson in the unpredictability of nature that we can sometimes forget is a thing because we're always indoors with temperature controlled air conditioning and flat surfaces and, you know, a roof, you know, and things like that. And screens on the windows, even if we do get fresh air, you know, like keeping out the bugs. And when we first got there, we got to our campsite and it was all booked up. Everybody claimed a camp spot and it was a little disappointing. Then we went and looked at different camp spots that were dispersed camping. Comment if you guys like camping and if you've done dispersed camping. It was my first time doing dispersed camping. And it was so beautiful. We literally found a spot next to a brook, okay? Bad bitches meeting at the babbling brook. I met there. Yes, it happened. And it was a beautiful time. We camped right next to the brook. We went tubing down another river in a small town nearby. And anyway, that's my little life update. I love camping. I find it very grounding. I'm very grateful to have grown up doing it because I feel this call to go back every once in a while. And Chris is very experienced with the outdoors, so it's something that we connect on. And anyway, yeah. Okay, with that said, we're going to go ahead and hop on over to the all signs forecast. As always, I always suggest going to your rising signs forecast, but you can also go to your sun sign or your moon sign. So the rising sign forecast is this overall overarching forecast or horoscope of how things will likely play out in your life. The sun horoscope, if you go to that sign, is how things will likely play out, how you interpret them, how you interact with the world. And then the moon horoscope, if you go to the sign of your moon, is more of this indication of how you might interpret things emotionally and how you might navigate things a little bit emotionally. It can be helpful to go to all three to kind of see which one resonates with you more. I personally have sun and moon in Gemini. I was born under a new moon. And so even though I'm a Pisces rising, I also like going to my sun and moon sign reading because I have a stellium in there. So a lot of that resonates with me too. But that's a little bit of context. As always, these are clips from my TikTok page. If you aren't already on TikTok or you haven't found me on there, definitely look me up. It's alina.aligned on there. And I have fun over there. I make little forecast videos on a lot of different things, even smaller transits. So not just lunations like I do here. So be sure to check me out. And yeah, I'll see y'all. Peace. Oh yeah, last thing, if you made it to this point, I would love if you commented 3 plant emojis. They can be any plant. And yeah, let me know if you've been feeling any of these transits and what grounds you. I'm curious, what grounds you? Let me know in the comments. We have a pretty grounding new moon happening in the mutable earth sign of Virgo. Now, for context, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So whatever's going on with Mercury, we're going to be feeling it a little bit more notably at the start of this new lunar cycle, which is an optimal time for setting intentions. Mercury just ended its retrograde, at least as of August 11th. We're still in the post-shadow period. Let's dive into an all-sign reading for everyone. So for my Aries friends, this new moon, the sun and moon will be coming together in your 6th house of labor, work, energy exchange. So this is a really notable time for reflecting on how far you've come and maybe setting intentions within finding balance and groundedness in the energy in which you give to others, the actual work, the actual labor that you extend yourself to, in what capacity that looks like for you. You might have some experiences highlighting this, your relationship with work, your relationship with that balance between work and your personal needs and your personal life. So take note of that. For my Taurus friends, this new moon in Virgo will be happening in your 5th house of creativity, aesthetics, romance even. Think of, especially if you're single, now can be a really great time. You might have some experiences as well that kind of elicit having notable conversations around boundaries, around what makes everyone feel safe in the relationship. But around this time in general can be a very beautiful time for reflecting on and intention setting when it comes to your creative expression, your inner child, and things like that. So for my Gemini friends, this lunation will be happening in your 4th house of your roots, of where you come from. So think about family ties, think about your background, what has made you you. When you look back on it, it feels a little bit familiar, maybe even some nostalgia. And so this new moon will definitely be a great time for reflecting on the things and experiences that have molded you and made you who you are today. For better or worse, this can be a really insightful time for calling your energy back to yourself, really resting, reflecting, and intention setting with things that involve reflecting on any sort of limiting beliefs maybe, and realizing, oh, that comes from a past aspect of me, this is who I am now, or maybe reflecting on and celebrating, having gratitude for the things that have led up to where you are today. Now for my Cancer friends, this lunation will be happening in your 3rd house of communication, information exchange, short-term travel, and the like. And so around this time, this can be a beautiful time for calling your energy back to yourself, exploring what grounds you as it pertains to feeling comfortable having honest conversations, feeling comfortable talking clearly about where you find balance and where maybe you don't. You might have some experiences leading up to this lunation, around the time of it, that involve conversations that are insightful for you, that lead you to feeling a little bit more aware of yourself in some capacity, that could really lend itself to you finding a bit more groundedness in who you are and acceptance in that. But definitely this can indicate a more social time for you. Now, for my Leo friends, this lunation will be happening in your second house of your means of income. Think of the money that you make from the things that you do. Think about the means in which the things that you need in order to exist as who you are. Think of the physical world, the physical matter, your immediate world. This is signifying a fresh start within that realm for you in some way. You might notice some experiences that happen. Some of you might be starting new jobs. This can signify a potential change or update in that space. It could be in your immediate office space, your immediate home, that impacts the way in which you operate in your life. Again, this could go back to finances as well, but this can be a great time to reflect on how far you've come with those things, and get clear on what it looks like for you to find more balance within that space. Now, for my Virgo friends, this is all about you, all about you. The sun and moon will be conjunct in your first house if you are a Virgo rising, but it will be conjunct in the sign of Virgo. And really, this will really be a time that is signifying a fresh start in life. The new moons mark not only a new lunar cycle over the next 28 days, but a new 6-month cycle where we see the peak and a lot of the fruits of the labor and of the decisions that are made right now. You see the fully matured plant, so to speak, of the seeds that are planted right now at the Virgo full moon in 6 months. And so for you, if you have been feeling called to kind of maybe turn over a new leaf, or you're looking for a refresh in some capacity, maybe you're kind of getting over the retrograde stuff, now is a great time to reflect on what has and hasn't been working for you and get clear on the direction in which you want to take right now. Now, for my Libra friends, this lunation will be happening in your 12th house of shadows, of death, loss. While this is a new moon, because it's happening in your 12th house of endings, this is also a very potent time for you. This is really marking this sort of liminal space between one chapter and another for many of you. But the 12th house is also the house of imagination, dreams. It's also the house in traditional astrology of hidden enemies, of revelations around secrets and things that are coming to the forefront. Maybe even this could involve your own self-sabotage or aspects of your own psyche that you're realizing haven't been conducive to your own balance in your life. And those things are things that can come to the forefront of your mind if you decide to reflect around this time. The 12th house is the ultimate house of sort of sabbatical and reflection. And the new moon is also a signification of reflection, drawing our energy back to ourselves. So if you can find time to kind of do that, it is really aligned at this time. Now, for my Scorpio friends, this lunation will be happening in your 12th house, or not 12th house, your 11th house of your social circles, your networks, of innovation, of progressiveness, of looking at things from slightly outside of the box and getting some new information, maybe not just from you, but from your community. The beautiful sort of innovative nature of collaborating with people and sharing new ideas. That is going to be an overarching theme for you. This is marking potential fresh start for you in this realm. If you want to set intentions around your collaborative aspects of life, this can be a very notable time for you. Now, for my Sagittarius friends, this lunation will be happening in your 10th house of your public image, your reputation, whereas the 4th house is more so your inner circle. The 10th house is your outer circle. Think of peak visibility and how people collectively might see you in some capacity. And so this new moon can be a really potent time for intention setting or reflecting on what it looks like. The 10th house is also associated with your career for those reasons, because of those significations. But this can be a really notable time for starting something new, maybe in terms of your career, starting something new, maybe in terms of the habits that you have when it comes to finding groundedness in the things that you do and in which you contribute to the world. And these are the type of things that can have a ripple effect over the next 6 months. So that is something to be aware of. Now, for my Capricorn friends, this lunation will be happening in your 9th house of philosophy, long distance travel. Think religion. Think of the things that expand our awareness and our mind. Think of information that requires a deeper dive and to really sit and process it. And so with that said, this can be a really beautiful time for drawing your energy back to yourself and getting back to any sort of spiritual practices, or diving deep into understanding or researching something that you might have felt an inkling or calling to kind of look a little bit deeper into before, but now feels like a beautiful time to do it. You might have some pretty serendipitous insights if you decide to dive into that right now. Now, for my Aquarius friends, this lunation will be happening in your 8th house of other people's money, of contracts, of inheritance, of intimate relationships. Think of like the deeper rooted intimacy that is required in order to, and vulnerability that's required to have a deeper level of intimacy and trust. So around this time, you might have some experiences that involve either your parents or other people and them paying you, or other people and their connection to you in terms of contracts even. But ultimately, this is a house of relationships and the sort of ramifications of relationships, what comes with relationships. The 8th house follows the 7th, which is the house of marriage and of union and of relationships. And so the 8th house is really sort of like what comes after that. Does it involve some contracts? If it involves like your professional life or things that you're doing outside of relationships, does it involve opening up, getting deeper with people? Think of soul ties as well as contractual ties, as well as monetary ties. These are all of the themes of the 8th house. So you might have some experiences leading up to this lunation that involve that spotlight that for you. But now can be a really great time to reflect upon your relationship with relationships, how you show up in terms of dynamics, in terms of your love language, in terms of communicating those things with other people. Now, for my Pisces friends, this lunation will be happening in your 7th house of relationships, of romance, intimacy, but really notably relationship balance, equitability, justice, and even retribution, the balancing of the scales. So if you have been feeling, what first comes to mind for some reason is resentment. If you have been feeling like there has been energetic imbalance in some space, this can be a really beautiful time for pausing to reflect on what it can look like for you to get that balance, whether it is, even if it doesn't involve other people and getting other people to do something that would make you feel better, how can you make you feel better? How can you navigate and work within the world in a way in which you can, you hold space for, things maybe that don't feel the best, that don't feel equitable potentially, but you are also in alignment with navigating and being around people who you do care about, and really fostering that, pouring into that, planting those seeds right now, so that over the next 28 days and even 6-month cycle, leading all the way to the Virgo full moon in 6 months, you can reap the fruits of your labor of pouring into those closer relationships that you have.